What is the most insensitive thing you've ever been asked? Soon after I got home from cremating my child, someone asked if the cremation left chunks of bone and, if so, do they grind that down? Thankfully I saw the humor in it. Largely because I could see his wife wanted to kill him. I have a seizure-like disorder, chorea athetosis. They present themselves in these really inconvenient episodes where I lose partial control of body parts. One time, I was on a date with a dude. And after I told him of my situation he said, "Wow, it'd be pretty hot to have you seize while we're fucking. Think you could arrange that?" Didn't bother with him after that. When I told my mother I finally had a girlfriend, her reply was pretty classic. "I recommend you be very cautious of any girl that's interested in you. What do you really have to offer? Not much. Gee, thanks mom. I guess the girl was really just after my kidneys?" Edit. For the record, I love my mom. This was her misguided way of being overprotective of her naive youngest son. Also for the record, I do have a lot to offer and I have a smoking hot wife who's not trying to sell my kidneys on the black market. As far as I know. My ex-mill ran into me and asked when I was due. Thing is she knew I had miscarried a child with her son. One of the reasons we split up and also knew because of that I could not have children. I just happened to have a still slightly swollen abdomen after a full and total hysterectomy at the time. Needless to say I had a very hormonal and emotional response. I worked as a waiter for a few years in high school. Elderly gentleman came up to me and asked, "Is it okay to be dealing with food with all that acne?" One time someone asked, "You know, adoptive father, isn't your real dad, right?" No shit. He's not my biological parent. But he is still my dad nonetheless. What a hurtful thing to say. About 3 weeks after my brother died, I went back to work. This lady and her daughter come in. Never seen her before in my life. She proceeds to introduce herself to me as a good friend of my mother. Never heard her name before. Saw her face. Didn't see her at the funeral. My manager was close by. She starts to say how sorry she is to hear of his passing and goes on and on. I start getting upset. My manager starts to approach us. The lady says, "Oh, how did he die? I heard he killed himself. Is that true?" I froze. My manager grabs me and says to the lady, "Excuse me, she's needed in the back. And if you're not going to buy anything you need to leave." I turned around and walked to the stock room with tears running down my face. She was the best manager I ever had. Thank you, Johanna. As a 19-year-old disabled woman, I've been asked tons of insensitive things. The most is probably a tie between someone asking me if I'm using a walker for the perks, and if I'm faking my disability for better accommodation at university. I can't handwrite, can barely walk without assistance, and can't stand for periods of time. What are the perks and where can I get them? They asked how my daughter was murdered. I said a knife. They then said, "But I mean how? You found her, tell me how. What did she look like? Was she tortured?" To answer a few questions. This was not a member of law enforcement. They don't ask questions like that. This was a stranger who saw our story on the news and came up to me in a crowded public place when I was with my older daughter and newborn grandson. I did not react with violence. I was still in shock and numb. It was a surreal experience. I responded very loudly that her questions were inappropriate. She came up to me talking super loud that she had saw us on the news, so she got everyone's attention. I figured it'd speak loud enough for everyone to hear in case any of them didn't know it was rude to ask things like that. They'd learn that day. She then walked away, took a picture, heard her camera go off as she pointed it at us, then called someone and proceeded to loudly tell them she talked to us. I wish I could say this was the only inconsiderate person we've dealt with. Sadly I can't. But I will say we have had more positive interactions with strangers than negative. My experience on Reddit has been mostly positive. You all are amazing. I joined because my Rosora always kept telling me about it. She loved no sleep and I never experienced Reddit until she was gone. Why did you give him the money? My manager's response to me telling her I got robbed at gunpoint in our store. I had a mandatory one-on-one meeting with my high school counselor about college prep, and the first thing he does when I walk in is scan me with his eyes and says, "Well, I guess we don't need to worry about filing your college athletics form now, do we?" And put the form I came in there for to swim in college back in his desk. Edit. There appears to be some confusion. I'm a male and the counselor was implying I was scrawny. And ultimately I decided not to swim in college because the school I chose was D1 and feeds directly into the US Olympic swim team and I'm not that good, haha. Why did you tell me and what did you do to make him do it? Asked by a family member after I told them about the abuse I suffered from my ex-husband. Finally felt safe to talk about it after 6 years, and that was the response. I struggled with trichotillomania as a kid. My mom tried all kinds of things to help me quit the habit. But since it wasn't the root problem, just a symptom of anxiety, most of her attempts made it worse instead of better. I remember one time when my cousins were over for lunch. We were all gathered around the table, enjoying our food and having pleasant conversation, when out of nowhere, my mom announced to everyone, "Have you noticed that has no eyelashes? She always pulls them out." Everyone turned to stare at me, and one of my cousins said disgustedly, "Why would you do that? You have anorexia, right?" I broke my back when I was a teenager and am paralyzed from the waist down. A girl from school asked me, "Are you planning on killing yourself?" Me. What? No. Why would I kill myself? Her. It's just, if I was in your situation. Oh, so you want a tea with X? Am 30 now, but grew up with a lisp. Was in speech therapy for years. When I was about 8 years old or so, I went up to a concession stand at my brother's Little League game. Asked to buy a Twix. The teenage guy behind the counter, trying to impress his lady coworker, decided to repeat my words back to me. Made me cry. One of the only times in my life I've ever seen my mom go full mama bear. She asked me why I was upset. And when I told her, she marched up to that dinky little stand and tore the guy a new one. But yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw this question. Weird how little things like that stick with you. Some people fucking suck, but then you get to see the ones who don't. Like my mom, defender of the little people. Love her. My brother's high school chem teacher had a C-section. A student asked her, "Do you think you deserve the child if you couldn't have her naturally? Why don't you just have a baby?" Asked a day after I told her I had a miscarriage. Are you self-conscious about? Well, you can just guarantee that didn't play out very well. Especially in the long term. When I was 16, I got asked by some random guy at my aunt's house if I knew that I was prettier when I wasn't smiling. I've always been self-conscious of my teeth, and he made it so much worse. I'm 28 now and still hate them, but will at least smile in some pic too. Edit. Someone paid my ransom. I was returned and am able to complete my post. Pictures **** anyways. Thank you so much, kind internet strangers. I grew up poor, so my parents weren't able to pay for braces, and as much as I hate my teeth, other things always came up first. I'm finally now at a point with some extra money and added health benefits, but of course dentists are closed because of COVID. I'll get there eventually though. My dad to me, "Did you get fat so I wouldn't molest you?" Father-in-law asked me if my husband and I if we were eating okay while at college. My response was yeah. We're able to make ends meet and get groceries and even have a little money left over. His response was yeah. I can tell you've been eating plenty. Looks like you ate the whole damn grocery store. I was 5'4" and weighed 110 pounds. Now that your father is gone, you can have your own life. Are you going to have kids? Asked to me by an older cousin at my dad's wake. His body, a few feet away from us in a casket. No. I would much rather have my father alive than dead at 63 years old. Not asked to me but directed at me. Which makes the question worse. My mom once took me and my sister to the farmer's market. For this story it's important you know I'm half Mexican. But my mother is a very white American. This woman at one of the stalls stares at us while we walk towards them. They had something we had come specifically for. As we get to the table, she looks at my mom and at us and then yells, "What are they?" I was probably about 16 at the time. So I was especially pissed off that she couldn't even pose her rude question to me directly. My mom was upset but answered, "My husband is from Mexico." The woman then said, "Oh, so they're not adopted from somewhere?" I'm a spitting image of my mother, except slightly tan, with darker hair. My mom again answered, "No." Then she asked if we were here legally. We were born here and my dad is lucky enough to be a citizen. Then she went on a tangent about some illegal lazy Mexican kid she fostered and how they're all the same. The entire time she talked as if we couldn't hear her. The entire experience was very dehumanizing. I'm glad that I've never seen her at that market again. Haha. A few of you were asking why my mom didn't fight that woman. It's simple. My mom is a teacher in a small town. News travels fast. She didn't want to lose her job. Got back from the bathroom at a restaurant. My mom asks in front of my family, "Do you go into the bathroom to throw up after you eat?" I've only been conscious of what I eat after that. Edit. There appears to be some confusion. My bad. It does look like she's concerned, but she spent many years of my life telling me I'm too skinny. I don't eat enough, etc. I was borderline underweight for a long time because of an untreated thyroid condition. But since that incident, my mom has gaslighted me about the body shaming she used to encourage in me and people around me. I have a complex about going to the bathroom around mealtime now because I don't want people to think I have an ED when in reality, I just need to pee. What did you do to cause that? After I told a female friend of my ex-boyfriend he cheated on me.